Howdy mates, how are we doing? Here's a part 4 video over at the Buck Tower Gardens still. However though, they have a little portion where you can actually hike along some Sandhill communities. Now, basically where we are, you may notice that we seem a little more what you call elevated. Well, there is a particular reason for that. So here's a bit of a background first. So imagine you go back millions of years ago. Majority of Florida that we know of now was once under the ocean. And that being said, not all of Florida's landmass was underwater. We have a known geologic feature in Florida that is called the Lake Wales Ridge. And it basically ranges from, it's in central Florida, and it probably ranges over 100 miles. Even if you look on the map, like an aerial map of Florida on Google Maps in satellite mode, you can actually see that ridge. It's completely what you call vertical. So it's very distinctive on a map. So, okay, what makes it so special? Well, Lake Wales Ridge is one of the highest points in peninsular Florida, but it's not the highest point in all of Florida. That being said, Lake Wales Ridge is one of the only regions of Florida that never went underwater at all. So you could say, like, where we're standing, it essentially was like a ridge, or they were a combination of different islands that never went underwater. So that being said, what makes Lake Wales Ridge so special is that it harbors up to 240 rare plants, in which some of them are actually endangered. So you could say, like, Lake Wales Ridge really gives us a glimpse of ancient Florida prior to when the oceanic levels receded. So you figure that before even the Ice Age happened. So I wanted to show you guys, actually. Got a little gopher tortoise right here. Essentially, this is a gopher tortoise's favorite type of habitat, because mostly Sandhills, it's in the name, is mostly sand. But the difference, though, is it's not like your beach sand that gets wet. The sand here is described to be very xeric. So in other words, very dry. And so, given those types of conditions, you're only going to find, only particular plants that can survive here. They can't survive anywhere else. So much of the flora that is found here is endemic. So it is found nowhere else on the planet. I'm going to actually show you guys an example. Here we go. Just going to watch my footing so that I don't step on anything precious. So right here, we've got something known as the Sandhill wireweed, something like that. I believe that's what it was called. Of course, I'll double check. Anyway, this plant is a great example of an endemic plant. So this soil, the plant is very particular about the type of soil that it is in. It does not really like moisture. So That being said, usually in Florida, given how sandy the soil is, this brings up another term. Oh yeah, before I get into that. So you can see it looks very similar to lupine. So there's a combination of several tiny flowers that you can see on here. Just look at that. Kind of reminds you of looking at a like a toothbrush. That's how I like to think of it. Or like those little cleaners that you use when you try to get any of you try to declog your sink, like a brush. So oftentimes they are rhizomatic, so they can actually spread. But these take quite a bit of time to grow. So I'm sure you can find them at nurseries, but given how rare they are, you may be lucky to even get one. But they do make a really good garden plant, just because it can attract your pollinators, such as bees. But going into what I was saying, term called hardiness zones. Now, for those of you who are not as familiar with hardiness zones, it's a common term that ecologists or even gardeners like to use. So, hardiness zone really refers to the temperature tolerance of plants in different parts of the world. Or in this case, we're just going to use the United States, for example. Typically, hardiness zones range from 1 to 10. And usually in each number, there's like an A, B, or even a C. So the further up north you go, the hardiness zone typically starts at 1. So that means it starts at some really, really cold temperatures. So you're talking like permafrost. And typically the range, like temperature range between each hardiness zone is usually about 10 or so degrees Fahrenheit. Anyways, so it's in intervals. So 1 being the coldest, you're talking probably -50 to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. So then the further south you go, those hardiness zones are going to increase. So Florida, given how warm it is majority of the year, most of Florida, especially peninsular Florida, ranges from 8 to 10. Or I should say 8A to 10B or C. So that means a lot of these plants that grow here, they can tolerate more of those warmer temperatures. So yes, hardiness zones are mostly indicated by temperature. I gotta break this up into a second video. All right, take care.